question that can be utilized for display for the. Does that appear to be the same rifle?
It's dark. I mean, yeah, it's got the same shadow of this rifle. Yes.
Do you recall if I told you that I...
Objection to hearsay, Your Honor.
Objection be sustained.
Did I inform you
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have rules that we have to go by. That is rules of procedure for conducting a trial, rules of evidence. When one side asks a question, the other side objects. I will rule on the matter. If I sustain an objection, witness is not permitted to answer that particular question. Please don't take any offense or take too much about any rulings. I'm just trying to apply the rules of evidence the best I know how to questions that are asked and when objections are made. I don't mean to indicate an opinion about the case or favor one side as opposed to the other. If I sustain a number of objections, that's why a defendant has elbow counsel to try to assist him in following the rules of evidence. It's difficult sometimes for pro se defendants, that is, people who represent themselves, to put on a case. And that's why elbow counsel is appointed to assist him when he wants to represent himself, to help him follow the rules of evidence. Go ahead with the questions, please.
You testified earlier that I was recording our conversations at that scene. Is that correct?
Yes.
You were made aware that I had a recorder. And do you recall me informing you that I had a recording of the events that I could provide you also of when I confronted the shooter?
No, sir.
You don't recall me?
No, sir.
You recall me giving you a report as to what happened?
Yes.
Can you tell us what that was?
I know that this is a layperson, Your Honor. I don't want to appear as if I'm picking on it, but the rules of evidence are there for a reason. I object on grounds. This is hearsay.
Objection be sustained.
Was it a fact that I informed you that I was shot at, my
Your
wife?
Honor, I know that Mr. Parsons is a person of at least reasonable intelligence and understands that these are just different ways to elicit the same hearsay information, and I object.
I'm just wanting to say that, yeah, I told him I was going to shoot him.
Objection be sustained.
You can't give any
Sergeant Walls, you testified that you got the gun from me, did you not, earlier?
Which gun?
The pistol.
No, sir. I didn't testify that I got it from you.
Earlier you testified that you got the gun from me, I believe. No?
No, sir. I testified that this is the gun that you stated was used.
You're testifying that I told you that that was my gun?
Yes.
That we had a conversation about that gun?
Yes.
Wasn't it a fact that it was the other officer that transported me to jail?
He was present too. Yes.
Who transported me to jail?
Deputy Armour.
Okay. And who did you get the gun from? How did you come in the possession of the gun?
When you say gun, are you talking about
The pistol? Yes, sir.
Yes, Deputy Armour.
Okay, so how did he come into possession of it?
I don't know, Mr. Parsons. I believe he got it from your wife. I think your wife is actually the one that retrieved the weapon. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So the fact is when I came down and presented you with the rifle and the holster, I didn't have my gun on me. It was nowhere around. It was safely put away.
Yes, sir, you didn't have it on.
I was disarmed. I was without a weapon. Of course, I don't know the condition of the rifle. I didn't. So when you received the pistol from, is Arendon?
Arnder.
Officer Arender. Had it already been unloaded, or was the gun still loaded?
I don't recall, Mr. Parsons.
Okay. In your line of work, you carry a gun, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is this type of pistol before you a common issue gun in law enforcement?
I can only speak on what I know, Mr. Parsons. I mean, we carry Glocks, but we don't carry 9mm.
Okay, what do y'all carry?
40,
Is that a bigger or smaller caliber?
bigger.
So it's more deadly.
Yes.
Okay.
Could be.
Okay. But the brand is a common brand amongst police, would you say?
Yes, sir.
Would you say it's a very safe gun?
Gun's only as safe as the person who carries it.
But as far as,
I'm not understanding the question, I guess.
have you been trained in the proper use of your firearm that you have?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In that training, were they educating you on the choice of guns based on their safety and reliability? Some guns by design are better than others and more safer.
I've never been trained that. I mean, I've never had an instructor tell me that one gun's safer than another. It all depends on the person who's carrying the weapon, how safe it's going to be.
Isn't it a fact that the guns that the Sheriff's Department carry are all standardized, they're all the same?
They are now. We carry the Glock.
So everybody carries the Glock now? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Did you record the serial numbers of the two weapons before you the day of the arrest?
Yes, sir, I do.
Do you have a copy of that record?
Yeah, well, I mean, I have mine.
Do you have it with you today? Do you have that with you today?
Yes, sir, I do.
Would I be able to see that, please? Your Honor, may I please the court, I would ask that the picture there that's been entered into evidence, I believe is Exhibit C, would it be possible to present that to the jury to pass around so that they can have just a close look up of the picture? It's just a black and white picture, but
Have the exhibit.
Sergeant Walls, this form you just gave me, Tipton County Sheriff's Office property record, did you fill out this form?
I'd have to see it, I believe so, Mr. Parsons. Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, and this other one, can I present that too? Did you fill this one out too? It indicates the articles that were recovered.
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. It doesn't describe the clip or the magazine as much as it describes the rifle, but can you tell how many rounds of ammunition that magazine will hold for that rifle? It's right there in front of you if you need to look at it. I don't know if it's stamped on the magazine or just visually. Would that be a 50-round magazine?
No, sir, I would say probably a 30.
30? Okay.
But I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not a gun expert. I don't know Mr. Parsons. I'm just guessing.
Okay. if you were presented with emptied 22 rounds that you could place into that, then you would be able to tell how many rounds it would actually hold. Is that correct?
Yes, I can fill it to its capacity.
Right, right.
Yes.
It's a functional magazine still, in other words.
I assume.
It's not, okay.
Yes.
And how many rounds, if any, ammunition were still remaining in the gun?
I believe it was 2.
There were
is
still-
is what I filled out, yes, so 2 rounds.
Okay. When you did you interview Mr. King and Mr. Laxton
Yes, sir.
at the same time?
No, sir. Well, initially I did, and then I came and talked to you, and then I went back and separated them.
So the first time they were together when you first spoke to them?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say together, but they were in the same area, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Did you happen to find any other guns at the scene?
Which scene are you talking about?
When you came to investigate, you were at the vicinity when you're investigating this incident. Did you identify any other guns? Were there any other guns present, available?
Are you
Mr.
talking
King,
about the scene
Mr.
at
King,
590 Hughes Road or the scene in your driveway?
both,
Which,
the whole area.
no, sir, not except for the ones that you gave.
So Mr. King didn't have a pistol?
I believe he did, but I didn't see it.
Why not?
I had no need to.
Why not? Wasn't it
Yes.
reported to you that that gun was pointed at me?
No, sir.
It wasn't.
No, sir.
And if I had a recording to play where that was presented to you, then maybe a memory lapse?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Did you search either Mr. King or Mr. Laxton? Did you frisk them, pat them down?
No, sir.
Why not?
I didn't have no reason to.
Wasn't it reported that they shot at me and my wife and killed my dog?
No, sir.
That was not reported to you.
No, sir.
So if I have an audio recording that shows...
Like, same way he's trying to get in some hearsay, guys. People that reported that are available to testify, I would assume. Be subject to cross-examination.
Well, I believe the state's witness is able to testify as to what he did or didn't do or heard. At the scene, you made several phone calls, is that correct? You've provided us with copies of phone records, is that correct?
I'm sure I made a lot of phone calls. I'm supervisor of the shift, so I have calls constantly coming in and out from my guys on the streets asking me questions on how to handle certain situations. So I'm sure I did make a lot of phone calls as far as calling folks and folks calling me.
Your Honor, if I may present this to the witness, if you would please identify this document.
It's the copy that when I got the subpoena stated that you needed my phone records. It's the copy that I requested from Mr. Bruce Petty.
So that is a copy of your phone records.
Yes.
And can you tell us what dates are indicated on the record?
September the 24th.
And is one of the phone numbers highlighted on the record?
Yes.
And can you tell us the number?
9:10 p.m. 476-6995.
Can you tell us who the person that has that number is?
I don't have a clue, Mr. Parsons.
Your Honor, may I call that as Exhibit D?
I think we need to get a standardized numbering system.
1 through 100 or D, A through L?
Next number.
if Your Honor prefers 1 through...
I'd let the court report it.
Yes, sir.
As she wants.
This is exhibit number 6 for identification.
And Sergeant Walls, could you please repeat that number one more time?
Uh, 901-476-6995.
Now, if you will, Sergeant Walls, I'd like for you to see if you can identify that book that the officer's bringing you.
It's a Militant telephone from July 09, 2010.
If you would open the page where it's open to, do you see a highlighted number?
Yes, sir.
Can you read that number to the jury, please?
476-6995.
Can you read the name assigned to that phone number?
Peeler, William A.
Do you know this person?
Yes, sir.
Who is this person?
Judge Peeler.
Okay, and what is the time that the phone call was made?
At 9:10 p.m.
Okay. Can you tell us the substance of that phone conversation?
I advised the judge of what we had and that I felt like if something wasn't done, that since y'all were neighbors, that a dispute could happen. Somebody could get seriously hurt.
Did Judge Peeler advise you to arrest me?
No, sir.
Yeah,
As a result of the conversation with Judge Peeler, did you...
you know, it's a hearsay, same hearsay objection, however it's phrased, but my objection besides hearsay is relevance as to what happened hours before this event. So I have an objection on relevance and hearsay, Your Honor.
As a result of the conversation, did it prompt or motivate you to do anything?
Well, again, it's not even a clever way to disguise hearsay, Your Honor. I had the same hearsay objection and relevance objection as to what a judge told an officer to do after the crime was committed.
You can ask what happened next.
Thank you. What happened next, Sergeant Walls,
What happened next after what, Mr. Parsons?
after the phone call? What did you do next?
I contacted Deputy Arnder, I imagine, and told him exactly what the judge said.
And was that the point where I was arrested?
No, sir.
It's not.
No, sir.
So you didn't contact Arnder and tell him to have me arrested at that point?
No, sir, I didn't.
Are you the arresting officer?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. And you're confident that you didn't contact Arnder and tell him to arrest me?
Yes, sir, I'm confident.
So is it your testimony now that you came into my presence and told me I was under arrest?
No, sir, I didn't.
Okay, then, but you're the officer that made the arrest.
Yes, that's correct.
And you testified that Arnder transported me to the jail. So
Correct, he did.
wouldn't it be a fact then that you contacted Arnder and informed him to take me to the jail that you had arrested me?
No, sir.
Why would he take me to jail if you hadn't informed him that you had made an arrest?
I informed him prior to that,
Prior to what?
the phone call to the judge.
Okay, well, the question was simply, did you contact Arnder and inform him that you had made an arrest and to transport me?
No, sir.
In this subpoena, part of the requirements was to bring a copy of your May I present this to the witness, please? Can you identify that document, please?
It's a summons for me
And what does that summons require you to bring with you?
to bring with him the Tipping County Policy and Procedure Manual for training law enforcement officers.
Did you bring that here today?
Yes, sir.
Do you have it there with you?
I left it with the DA.
I don't see it.
I give the other copy of this Parsons.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to present this to the witness for identification purposes. Could you identify that document presented to you, sir?
Yes, this is our policy procedure, the field training. This is the policy procedure we abide by as far as training officers.
Okay. So that is the policy and procedure manual for Tipton County Sheriff's Department.
No, sir. This is our policy procedure manual for training law enforcement officers.
Could you please repeat what the subpoena asked for you to bring again as far as...
Bring with him the Tipping County Policy and Procedure Manual for training law enforcement officials.
Okay, that trains you as to what to do as an officer, is that correct?
This right here, yes.
Okay. How many pages is that lengthy document?
4.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please show us in that document where it says that you call a judge when you're at a scene doing an investigation.
Oh, it's not going to have it in here. This is just for training officers.
Right, that's what you're given to train you as to what to do when you're out in the field.
Yes, sir, I guess, guidance. Yes, sir.
Right, and please show me where it says to contact a judge when you...
Okay.
It's not in there?
No, sir.
There's no policy to call a judge when you have a question regarding an arrest. What is the normal policy? Who would you normally call if you have a question about a situation?
Well, in our policy and procedure, it covers that. But our policy and procedure for training law enforcement officials does not.
Right, that's the training manual, right? Would you normally call an investigator if you have a question?
A question, it depends on the circumstances.
Right, right. In this case, where you're trying to determine, I guess, who to believe at the scene, your options are to call who?
No, sir, I'm the supervisor, so that would be my decision.
So why would you call Judge Peeler if you make the decisions? You're the buck stops here guy.
Because my job as a law enforcement officer is to make sure people are safe and secure and out of harm's way. And if I have two neighbors disputing to the point of where we have guns involved and they're pointing accusations at each other and more if it leans the other way, then it's my job to make sure that I do not allow it to continue on.
And Sergeant Walls, isn't it a fact that you have the authority to make an arrest if someone informs you of a felony that they've witnessed just by a statement? Is that not a fact? That you can make the decision to effect the arrest without witnessing it yourself?
I do, but the one thing I've got to give is probable cause. And once I can get probable cause, I can act on a felony. And it does not have to be committed in my presence.
So you don't need the authority of a judge to make an arrest. If you have probable cause, you can make the arrest, correct?
That's correct.
Did you have probable cause in this case?
Yes, I felt like I did.
What was that probable cause?
Objection is irrelevant, Your Honor.
It's very relevant, goes to the heart of the arrest, to determine the fact that if the man has evidence,
Objection be sustained.
Sergeant Walls, did you realize that Judge Peeler would be the one sitting on the bench at the probable cause hearing to make a decision on the decision he's already made for you?
I know that Judge Peters, the General Sessions Judge, was I thinking about it that night, no.
But you knew he was a General Sessions judge that night, correct?
I know he's the General Sessions Judge.
And that night you knew he was a judge in General Sessions in Tipton County, correct?
Correct.
How long have you been a deputy with the Sheriff's Department in Tipton County?
Since January of '98.
You've been a deputy since January of '98?
That's correct, when I started. Actually, I wasn't a deputy. I didn't graduate the academy until '98, but I began in January of '98.
So basically 9 years you've been with the department in some capacity.
For 9 years.
Prior to September 2007, you were with the department for 9 years.
That's correct.
It's quite a lengthy time, and you're familiar with how the court works and the people on the benches and stuff.
Yes, I am.
And you understand that a judge in the General Sessions Court handles probable cause hearings.
That's correct.
And you would be aware that a judge can only rule in a case one time, and then he has to hand it off to someone else.
Objection calls for a legal conclusion.
The man is a law enforcement officer. If he can't make a legal conclusion,
Objection calls for a legal conclusion, Your Honor.
I think so you ordered the arrest, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And what was that charge for? Did you make the charge at that moment?
Objection is irrelevant, Your Honor. He's been indicted. The indictment's before the jury.
We can't.
Court allowed him to state what
I charged him with aggravated assault and reckless endangerment.
What about aggravated kidnapping?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Objection be sustained.
Okay, so just the aggravated assault and reckless endangerment.
Yes, that's correct.
Ladies and gentlemen, the way it works is an officer in the field will make an arrest, then it's evaluated by the district attorney, it's presented to a grand jury, and a grand jury has the option to return charges different from those of the initial arrest. Quite often happens. Go to the question.
And what did you arrest Barry Laxton and Nick King with?
I didn't charge them with anything.
Why not?
I didn't feel like they broke the law, committed a crime.
But you heard my story and their story, right?
That's correct.
And was I not believable?
What Mr. Parsons told me that night didn't give me probable cause to effect an arrest.
And it's your testimony that you understood that I was recording our conversation.
Yes, Mr. Parsons told me probably
How do I play it right now?
2-3 minutes into our conversation that he's recording the conversation.
Your Honor, at this time I'd move the court to allow this defense to present the recording that the officer is referring to.
Same hearsay objection, Your Honor. Whether it's recorded or known to be recorded, it's still hearsay.
It's your testimony that you found 2 rounds left in the clip. Is that correct, Sergeant Walls?
You talking about the magazine?
Yes, sir. I'm
The
sorry.
rifle?
Magazine.
Yes.
Is were you informed of how many rounds were expended? Did Mr. Laxton identify and tell you how many rounds he shot at the dog?
I don't recall if he told me exactly how many rounds he shot in all. No, sir. I don't recall.
Did you recover the shell casings?
No, sir, I didn't.
Did you look for them that night?
No, sir.
Did you look for the dog that night?
Yes, sir.
Before or after the arrest?
After the arrest.
Why not before?
I don't know.
Does it make a difference?
No, sir.
Then why look for the dog in the first place?
Because the dog became evidence.
It's your testimony the dog became evidence. So if the Sheriff's Department was notified that the dog was found 2 days later, wouldn't it be the responsibility of the Sheriff's Department to go out and investigate the evidence?
I'm assuming it is. That's our CID division, and I don't know their policy and procedures because I work in the patrol division.
Different policy and procedure manual?
I don't know Mr. Parsons. I've never been over to CID.
But they were out there that night.
Detective Nesby was.
You recall that night saying it would be a good thing if it rained.
I don't recall. At which point? Just in the night in general?
While we were out looking for Brandy.
When we was out looking for who?
Brandy, my dog that was murdered by Laxton.
Oh, the dog.
Objection to legal characterization of the killing of an animal as being a murder.
He's referring to me all day long as this vicious guy who's got wolves and demonizing me. I see no difference, Your Honor.
Okay, the jury will make a determination as to what the facts are.
Okay, what was your question, Mr. Parsons?
While walking around looking for the dog, did you make the comment, it would be good if it rained? Or something to the effect that raining would be a good thing?
To be honest, 2 years ago, I don't know what all I said. I don't recall saying that, but I don't know. We was walking around in the field where Mr. Parsons was attempting to show us where he placed the dog, and we couldn't find the dog.
If I played that recording, would that refresh your recollection?
Yes, sir, it would.
Okay. Was anyone else recording the search at this time?
I don't know. I can't answer for everybody. I wasn't.
I've got the recording. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
It's irrelevant. If you want to hear it, unless you take a break for the officer to go back and hear it, I have the same hearsay objection, Your Honor, to everything Mike Parsons said on that tape. Now, if the officer made some comment about whether it would be nice if it rained, it may be perhaps related to the fact that it was the height of the drought. But in any case, it's irrelevant to this case. And it's hearsay.
The officers identified and testified that he knew there was a recording going on, and he can testify if he listens to the recording if in fact that was his voice on the tape, and that might spur his recollection to these events. I think we're entitled to this evidence. I think the jury's entitled to hear this tape. I think everybody's waiting to hear this tape.
Objection to be sustained.
Did you charge me with burglary and theft that night?
No, sir.
Why not?
Just didn't.
Was it because I presented you with a rifle that I confiscated?
No, I have to object to the relevance of whether the officer charges ultimately is the district attorney's office to determine charges. It's irrelevant what's charged that night.
I would object. It's the responsibility of law enforcement to determine the charge. It's up to the district attorney to determine if it's factual and present it to the grand jury and then prosecute. It's not their job to trump up charges. as has been done in this case.
Okay, objection to be sustained.
Why did you wait until after I was arrested to go look for the dog?
Because when I spoke to Mr. Parsons, I was under the assumption that his wife knew where the dog was. So I was going to use his wife to show us where the dog had gone with.
Did anybody tell you my wife knew where the dog was?
Yes, Mr. Parsons did, if I remember correctly.
Did you investigate by interviewing Mrs. Parsons?
Did I investigate what I don't understand the question that you're asking.
Did you interview Ms. Parsons as a witness?
I did ask Ms. Parsons what went on tonight.
Did you record that investigation?
We didn't have the capabilities of recording, and if we did, mine wasn't working that night. I don't have a recording.
Isn't it a fact that you've got handwritten statements from Laxton and King from that night?
That's correct.
So you're saying you got a statement from my wife?
No, sir, I didn't.
Or you just previously said that you had interviewed her?
And she couldn't tell me that.
So if she couldn't tell you anything, why would you think she could show you the dog?
Because Mr. Parsons said his wife would know where the dog was going with.
And when I was brought back from the jail to go down in the field, wasn't it apparent that only I knew where I'd laid the dog?
Apparently it wasn't, because we couldn't find the gun. The dog. I don't know where the dog was.
Isn't it a fact that while out there looking, someone yelled, "I found her, she's over here"?
Deputy Arner, he did find what he ended up, I believe, calling at night a dead possum. At first glance, it was dark out in this field. He thought it was the dog, but it wasn't.
And do you know how big Brandy was?
At the time, no, I did not.
Okay. And do you know how big the possum was? Did you see the possum?
No, I didn't.
Did you hear somebody immediately when he said, "I found her, she's over here"? Did you hear somebody go, "Shh"?
No, I didn't.
Who was the person that said 4 seconds later, "Oh, it's a possum"?
I believe it was Deputy Arner. I'm not sure.
Could have been somebody else.
I'm not sure.
Can I ask you, did I know Can you identify all the people that you took statements from in your investigation that night?
You talking about written statements?
Any form of statement, written statement, recorded statement?
Could I identify them?
Mm-hmm.
No, sir. I know I spoke to some gentleman that was there before I met you, and I don't recall his name.
Did you get a statement from him?
No, sir.
Okay, but who did you get a statement from?
I got a statement from the people that were actually there that seen the crime.
Could you name those people?
Mr. Nick King and Mr. Barry Laxton.
That's it?
Yes, sir.
Who called 911?
I believe, at the time, I didn't know, but I found later, I believe it was Mr. Nick King.
Okay. Is it commonplace to only arrest those people that don't call 911 in Tipton County?
No, sir, it's not.
So you weren't there, you didn't witness anything, but yet you chose to arrest the person whose animal was shot and killed, taking the word of the shooter, the shooter that you have a magazine in front of that obviously would hold a substantial amount of ammunition that would produce grave danger to the environment and the community where all of these people live, to shoot at a dog across the street from his property. Didn't that seem kind of odd that he was across the street off his property?
That's not the information I got that night.
Did you identify where Mr. King lived?
Yes, sir.
Where does he live?
I believe he lives at 590 Hughes Road with his father-in-law.
Mr. Laxton, where does Mr. Laxton
Oh,
shoot
Mr.
him?
Laxton, I believe it was 653 Hughes Road.
Would that be across the street from 590?
Okay, I misunderstood you. I thought you meant he was shooting across the street at a dog.
Did he testify that he shot across the street?
I don't know what he testified to.
You took the report. Do you have a copy of that report?
Yes, sir.
Do you have it with you?
Yes, sir.
Can you read that report?
Say, even though it's my witness, Young, same hearsay objection, they're here to testify. It's talking about Barry Laxton.
So the fact is that you just only got 2 statements of all the people there. Is that correct?
From my understanding, Mr. Parsons, there wasn't but 3 people there.
Well, you said Laxton, King, myself, my wife, and a friend of mine, and then other people that showed up.
So you're talking about after the incident?
During the incident, after the incident, people that could tell you what happened. How many people told you what happened at the scene?
Once I got there, it was just 3 people. 3 people that came forth and said that they were there, that they observed the incident and gave their version of what happened.
But you have no recorded version of Mike Parsons' statement to you.
Correct.
No written statement at all.
Correct.
But one was given.
He didn't provide me with a written statement. I mean, he did verbally state to me what happened, or what he allegedly stated happened.
And King and Laxton first gave you a verbal statement. Before they wrote it down, they verbally told you what happened. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then you later got a written statement from them,
That's right.
but not from Mike Parsons.
No, I did not.
In your opinion, why did you choose to believe Laxton? Well, let me ask you this. Where was Laxton physically at when he did all the shooting? Was he on his property or the guy across the street?
He was in the yard of 590 Hughes, or the property of 590 Hughes.
And that would be across the street from his residence?
That's correct.
Could you please quote the Tennessee Code statute that allows one to cross after someone else's dog and go kill somebody else's dog? What statute allows you to pursue and hunt down a domestic pet in a neighborhood?
Come on, officer, you know the code section. Objection, Young.
He's a professional law enforcement officer. He knows the code. He knows what's legal and what's not. Is it legal to hunt down someone's dog?
Objection, Young. Calls for a legal conclusion.
If he calls for legal conclusion, objection be sustained. But you can state the question.
So I'm to understand that a law enforcement officer that makes legal conclusions daily doesn't have the right to do that today. You stated that you questioned Mr. Laxton and Mr. King originally together. Does the policy stipulate that you should separate them and get their stories separate so that you get a clear understanding of the facts so that they're not listening to each other and supporting each other? Isn't that the policy?
No,
That's not the policy.
no.
And if someone else with law enforcement came in and testified, and I'm sorry, but Your Honor, I would ask that if there are other witnesses in the room, they need to leave the room. If the state has other witnesses they're going to call. Mr. Nessie's been sitting here the whole time, and Your Honor's already ruled that all the witnesses have to remain out until they're called.
Yes. The state identified Mr. Nestle as the state's representative. The court allowed him to remain in, but all the other witnesses do have to leave the courtroom as the rules called for at the beginning.
And as I said at the beginning of this hearing, my wife was my representative, able to sit beside me, and Your Honor denied me that right.
Yes, we've already had that discussion. That's correct.
So am I entitled now to bring my wife in as my representative to assist me, as the state's doing?
The court's already ruled with regard to that, Mr. Parsons.
Can the court state on the record why?
I already did outside the presence of the jury. Do you have any more questions of this witness? If not, I'm going to release it.
Just a few. The rifle that you have before you, can you classify that rifle? Is it a bolt action, semi-automatic, fully automatic?
It's the same.
Okay. Would you state that, would it be your understanding belief that that rifle has the ability to expend a large number of bullets very rapidly?
Yes, sir, it could.
Now, did you ever go to my home that night?
Yes, sir, I did.
You went to my house.
No, sir, I didn't actually go into your house or nothing. No, sir.
You went to my house?
I'm assuming, Mr. Parsons, wherever you took us that night, looking for the
Did you
dog.
walk up to a structure, or was you in a field?
I was in a field.
The house is a structure. I'm talking about my house, my structure, not the field, not the driveway. I'm just
Okay,
trying to
no,
determine that you were or were not at my home that night.
No, I wasn't.
Did you ever report to anyone that you had ever went to my home?
No, sir.
So-
Not that I recall.
So you didn't report to the local newspaper that you went to my house where you effected an arrest?
I don't report to the newspaper.
So you've had no conversation with the local newspaper?
No, sir, I did not.
Can I ask who in the department disseminates this information?
I have no idea. I'm assuming the higher administration.
And at your testimony, you did not that night locate or look for any shell casings?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you not in fact allow me to take you to where you were informed that I fired a warning shot in the ground?
I do believe that when we was looking for the dog, that Mr. Parsons brought to my attention, that's where he was standing right across there's I believe a little bit like fence line.
Wasn't it a fact that the other officer took me in a squad car to 590 Hughes Road, and we drove around and got out and walked around looking for that spot where the shot was fired into the ground prior to being arrested?
I don't have any knowledge of that. I don't recall.
You don't recall your partner driving me in a squad car to that 590 address and taking me over there and all of us looking around? You weren't right there with Laxton and King at the driveway at 590 while your partner in a squad car with me was driving around looking for the spot where I shot in the ground.
I don't recall that. I wasn't in the car.
Do you know if any other officers found shell casings that night?
That night, no, sir.
Did they look for shell casings that night?
That night, no, sir.
You testified you witnessing blood on my clothes. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it was your testimony that, it was your opinion that the blood came from my dog Brandy.
If I recall correctly, I believe Mr. Parsons told me that the blood was from his dog, where they had killed his dog.
Was it not a fact that the clothes were not only bloody, but they were wet from the water that came off of my dog, indicating that she was soaking wet?
That I don't know.
You don't recall my shirt soaking wet with water?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall the odor of stagnant pond water on my clothes?
I don't recall that.
Do you recall seeing neighbors' dogs running loose at the time you were there at the scene?
I didn't see any dogs running loose.
So no one came up to you and asked you about, what about these other dogs? And you went to the next door neighbor's house and told them to put their dog up. Isn't that the fact? Didn't you in fact instruct a neighbor to put his dog away?
Later on that night, that's correct.
Thank you. Did you realize your conversations then were being recorded too, because now the digital recorder had been given to my friend and then to my wife?
I was not aware of that.
But I informed you that I had a digital recorder upon first meeting me.
He did inform me that he was recording the conversation.
What was your rank at the time of this event on September 24th, 2007?
Sergeant.
Nothing further at this time reserved to... Oh, one more, sorry. And I know you've already said you're not an expert per se in guns, but roughly how far can a .22 rifle shell travel?
I will object if he's not qualified as an expert.
I think it's common knowledge, Your Honor.
No need to mention it. Same objection.
I'll let him answer if he knows.
I have no idea.
No idea. Have you ever shot a .22 rifle?
Yes, I shot 22 rounds.
How far were you shooting?
Sometimes close, sometimes far.
Distance-wise, what was the farthest you would say?
50 yards.
50 yards, so 150 feet?
At 350 yards. Yes.
And you target practicing or hunting or
Squirrel hunt.
squirrel hunting? Okay. So at least at that range you knew it was deadly.
Yeah, we killed a squirrel.
And you've had basic gun training, I presume, as a sportsman hunter? Get your hunting license, you have to go through certain basic training to familiarize yourself with the gun and the ammunition. I believe the TRW, the Tennessee Wildlife Resources, requires that to get a hunting license.
I've been trained in law enforcement as far as hunting goes.
Okay.
I mean, as far as shooting a weapon goes.
Right. So if you've had the training and you've actually loaded the gun with the 22 rounds and you've pulled the cartridges out of the case and you've looked at the box, you've purchased them possibly. Have you ever purchased 22 caliber ammunition?
I don't think I ever have.
Have you ever looked at the side of the box on the cartridges? It tells you the warning label, the effective deadly range of the ammunition.
I wouldn't know on 22. I don't think I've ever purchased 22.
Have you ever read the side of the box that the ammo comes out of?
No, I haven't.
Have you ever loaded a 22 rifle?
Yes, sir, I have.
Where did you get the ammunition to load it?
My dad gave it to me.
He just handed it to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would you think it would be reckless to shoot, if that clip had been loaded, would it have been reckless to shoot that many shots with all the houses in the area?
Yeah, you talking the magazine?
Yeah, if it's loaded and a person just starts shooting all different areas and up in the air warning shots and stuff, would that not be considered reckless endangerment?
I would say it depends on the angle of the barrel.
Okay. That night you charged me with reckless endangerment, correct? For firing a shot into the ground, correct?
It was not firing a shot in the ground.
Oh, it wasn't for shooting a shot in the ground.
Okay.
What was the reckless endangerment charge for?
It was the reckless behavior in which he pointed the gun at someone.
But isn't that aggravated assault?
Yeah, it also would constitute aggravated assault.
So you're certain the reckless endangerment wasn't Are you aware of the fact that I'm not charged with reckless endangerment anymore?
No, sir, I'm not.
You're not aware of what I'm charged with here today?
He has several charges. No, sir, I don't.
Okay. If in fact the charge of reckless endangerment that you charged me with was dropped, why would that be done?
Objection. Calls for speculation as to why the district attorney charges.
It's immaterial.
Withdrawn.
The court sustained objection.
And again, on what basis did you arrest me?
Now, again, same
Objection to
objection.
be sustained.
And you have a copy of Laxton and King's statements from that night with you today?
Yes, sir, I do.
Can we enter them? Is it possible to enter these as state's exhibits that the state had created at this point, Your Honor?
What's that?
We would like to enter these as state's exhibits, since he's brought them with him today.
Your Honor, the state.
Or the, I'm sorry, the arresting officer's exhibits who created these documents at the scene, since he can authenticate these documents that they were compiled and in his presence provided to him, that he was the recipient of these documents.
What document?
The reports that he received, the write-ups,
Statements?
one-page statements from Laxton and King the night of
The
the
state would not object to their introduction for identification purposes as being the written statements of Barry Laxton and Mr. King.
They can be marked.
Mr. Arrington, one real quick thing. In your
Could you
narrative,
give me just a minute to get this exhibit?
I'm sorry.
Please, I'm sorry.
you got it. Yes, ma'am. You got it. Okay.
Thank you.
If I may present this to the witness, would you please identify this document?
It is my investigative narrative.
Can you read the beginning and end of that sentence that's highlighted at the bottom?
There was no evidence indicating that Barry's rounds could have even came close to Mike due to the ground constantly inclining from where the shots were fired.
So you're saying because the ground slopes up, that prevents him from raising the barrel.
No, sir.
What are you saying then? How would a slight incline of the ground prevent his shots from impacting me?
Where Mr. Parsons explained to me where he was standing when he fired his warning shot, and as Mr. Barry was shooting the dog, there's a steady incline. Mr. Parsons was up here, Barry was down here, and the dog, of course, is smaller than a human being, I would assume. So the rounds, I'm saying, as far as the evidence goes, there's no way unless he actually took aim and shot up toward Mr. Parsons.
If a dog's running up a hill and you're following the dog up the hill, what was the relative distance from where Mr. Laxton told you he was to where I would have been?
I would say at least 150 yards.
450 feet then.
Just guessing.
300 yards is 450 feet. So what was the elevation change, would you say, from where Mr. Laxton was to where Mr. Parsons was?
It was just a steady incline. I mean, just an upward hill, I guess is the best way to describe it.
If this is a slight angle, a slight incline, and if you were to take a person standing here and a person down here and draw a straight line, just a guesstimate, would you say it was an elevation incline of 5 feet, 10 feet?
I mean, I wouldn't know how to answer that. I mean, I never went out and judged or marked hills. far as how they incline or decline.
You understand that, just a matter of physics, that the farther something gets away from you, the smaller it becomes. As far as your perspective, the farther I move this pin away from you, the smaller it becomes. It's actually the same size pin, but if it's right in front of you, it's real big. It's easy to hit. Shoot at it, point at it, touch it. But if it's across the room, it's harder to